Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and I was always told I had a voice for radio, so today I've got some more tournament games for you. But it's a very special weekend, ladies and gentlemen. This was the weekend when the new Pokemon trading card game set BREAKPoint was legal for the very first time. So I got myself down to Mad for Miniatures in St Austell in the most beautiful part of the UK, that being Cornwall, and I recorded a whole bunch of games to make City Championship. The format here is X and Y to BREAKPoint. It is standard format, but BREAKPoint is now legal. We are playing best of 3. We are playing 50 minutes, and I've made sure to get some decks in here that are using cards from the new set so we can see how good they are and we can start making an assessment of how much of an impact they're going to make. Huge thank you to Vinnie Gardner and all at Mad for Miniatures for allowing me to record and making it very simple. So sit back, grab yourselves a nice beverage, and enjoy this game from the first weekend when BREAKPoint was legal. 50 minutes, best of 3, X and Y to BREAKPoint. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, so on the left we have got Tom Lascelles, he's going to be playing Mewtwo, and on the right we've got me, and I'm going to be playing Garchomp. And I win the flip and I get to go first. I won the flip in 50% of the games this tournament, and I have a strong energy on Gibble, and that sounds good to me, and that's my entire turn. This is the first game all day. This is game number 7 I've played today, and the first 6 games my deck went perfectly fine, and this game, poor. So Tom plays a Battle Compressor, gets rid of a couple of Psychic Energy. Remember that these Mewtwo decks do tend to play that Mega Turbo card, the trainer that allows you to attach a Psychic Energy from your discard pile to your Pokemon. Well, your Mega Pokemon, I should say. And he also gets rid of a Sycamore. He's going to try and use the trainer card VS Seeker to grab Sycamore out of the discard. Well, grab any supporter out the discard, but he's putting Sycamore in, so when he plays VS Seeker, he can grab the Sycamore. Now, the good news for me is that I know Tom isn't getting the win this turn, as he plays an Ultra Ball, and he's also started a Hooper. Now, the bad thing about starting Hooper is, firstly, you've got a bad starter, and secondly, you don't get to search for Hooper. Now, what these Mewtwo decks tend to do on turn 1, Ultra Ball for a Hooper for a couple of Mewtwo and a Shaymin. Really get yourself set up, because Hooper's ability allows you to search for any free EX Pokemon. Well, you can't do that if you start Hooper, because most decks only play 1, because it's a really bad starter. So I get a bit of a break with that, and I know that there's basically only 2 attacks he can do turn 1. He can use Mewtwo's Scatter Shot for 1 Psychic Energy to do 30 damage, or he can use Shaymin's Sky Return to do 30 damage, which it looks like he's going to do here. So I knew I had a turn, so it's not the end of the world. If I top deck something here, I am going to be okay. You can't see this, ladies and gentlemen, but I think I had 5 energy in my opening hand, and I have a Fighting Stadium, and I have another Strong Energy, because I've apparently got lots of that. And I've got a Gabite. Now, this is not a great turn. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to Sand Tomb for 60. But here's the thing about Sand Tomb. Sand Tomb stops your opponent retreating. So even though he's got that Hooper with a Float Stone attached, that Hooper is staying in the active. There goes a Shrine of Memories. Allows all Pokemon to use the attacks of their pre-evolutions. But unless he's got an AZ or a Switch, etc., I'm going to have another turn before he wins. So he Mega Evolves a Mewtwo. I'm letting him take it back because, yeah. And I get another Strong Energy on the Gabite. Now, what I'm trying to do here is not get a KO, because I don't have anything yet. So I've got a Sand Tomb for at least 60. It doesn't really matter if I do 60 or 80 here. I'm just going to go ahead and do... Oh, sorry, yes. I had the Fighting Stadium last turn, so we actually miscalculated it. It should have been 80. That was us being silly, but we corrected it very quickly indeed. So I'm thinking here, I just don't want to get a KO, because if I get the KO, he gets to bring his Mewtwo into the active. As it is, I can Sand Tomb, and he needs an AZ. Now, we did talk in the game where Andy Shaymin's there for 4, because he Sky returned last turn, so we got to use it again. And we see a Trainer's Mail come down, and he gets a Mewtwo Spirit Link, so he can evolve without ending his turn. Here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen. He had a Battle Compressor. He could have discarded an AZ, and then VSC could it back. But he didn't know I was going to Sand Tomb. I mean, how many of you, before you started watching this video, knew what Gabite's attack was? Now, I knew what it was, because this is not the first game today that Gabite Sand Tomb has got me out of a pinch. But I wouldn't expect my opponent to. But I'm going to need to hit something on this turn. Because either I can get a KO, in which case I lose next turn, because he's going to Psychic Infinity me for a lot. Or I don't attack, and he can retreat and Psychic Infinity me for a lot. So I need to hit something this turn. Or I lose the game. It's as simple as that. And if I hit anything here, that is the question. Ultra Ball, Shaman, Sycamore, Corinna, even a Level Ball. And I hit a Sycamore. We see there, is that, how much energy was in that hand? Bearing in mind I've got 2 attached already, was that 5 energy? No, maybe 3 energy. There was at least 5 total energy so far that I've drawn, which is not good, ladies and gentlemen. Having said that, I've used Gabite to my advantage. I've got a Gibble with a Focus Sash attached. That's an item tool. And I see 2 Level Balls, so I've got a field of Gibbles going at this stage. I might get a Hawlucha, but really this deck, you want to just get Garchomps out as soon as possible. And yeah, I've got the 3 Gibbles going here. Now what that Focus Sash does, you attach it to one of your fighting Pokemon, and if they would be one-hit KO'd, they go down to 10 HP instead, and Focus Sash gets discarded. And that's what gives me a huge advantage in this matchup. I'm going to be using Garchomp's attacks, we'll talk about them later, and I'm going to be using Focus Sash to try and avoid one-hit KOs. Now, Tom is going to be using Mega Mewtwo, and there are 2 attacks of note. The Mega, for a double colourless, does Psychic Infinity, 30 times the number of damage attached to both active Pokemon, plus 10. Or he uses Shine of Memories to use Mewtwo EX's attack, damage change, for a Psychic colourless, which allows him to swap damage counters with the defending Pokemon. Which means if I go and do 140 damage to Mewtwo, he can damage change and KO my 130 HP Garchomp. So I'm going to be trying to put him in an awkward position where I do a bit of damage, and he can either Psychic Infinity for the KO, or he can damage change and not get a KO. But of course, now that I've got the Focus Sash, he's going to basically have to damage change and then Psychic Infinity for every KO, because I don't believe Tom plays Zerosic. So I had a very bad start, the worst start I've had in the 7 games so far, but it's okay. I bought 2 turns, I took 2 prizes off the Hooper, I've played my Sycamore, I've got 3 Gibbles on the bench, and with the 4 VS Seeker and the cards I've played and all of that, I should from here on be able to draw prizes, or at least draw cards pretty consistently. This is a matchup where, assuming that, oh, and here we see a Mega Turbo. Now this is going to get him a Psychic Energy, which means Psychic Infinity does more, but it also means that damage change is an option. Here he's going to get the KO. That's a Sycamore there. So he discards his hand and draws a fresh hand of 7 cards. He's going to get the KO here. But I'm going to be up by a prize, and I'm going to want a Garchomp next turn. So I'm going to need a Rare Candy and a Garchomp. Rare Candy being that trainer card, which allows me to skip an evolution stage. As long as Gibble's been down a turn, I can play a Rare Candy and go straight to Garchomp. Do not pass Gabite. Do not collect $200. I'm also going to want an energy, of course, to do an attack. But you see I've got a Focus Sash on that benched Gibble. So what that means is that even if I don't have a Garchomp, that Gibble's going to live for a turn. Even if my opponent plays a Zerosic, they've got to play a Lysander or a Zerosic for every prize they take. Now here's the thing, I've had to get rid of a lot of energy, including I believe 3 of my 4 strong energy. At least 3 of my 4 strong energy. Now there comes a Trainer's Mail, and I'm going to grab, what am I going to grab? I believe I'm going to make a very, very, very silly mistake here. There's one game make a silly mistake. I grab a Fighting Energy, now a Fighting Stadium. Now I hope I've got the Rare Candy, ladies and gentlemen, because I'm going to need the Rare Candy to grab the Garchomp. Not only that, but I'm going to need, maybe if I've got a Corinna here, I'm going to need to grab a Professor's Letter to grab some energy. So Shrine of Memories goes away, which means he can't use damage change. So I need a rare candy, I need a Garchomp, I need some energy. Now I'm going to Corinna, and I hope I've got an energy in hand, because I didn't need the Fighting Stadium off that Trainer's Mail. Now, I've changed my mind. I'm going to play an Acro Bike, and I have gotten out of jail there, ladies and gentlemen. That was a silly play on my part, but I got away with it. I needed to get an Energy, Rare Candy, Garchomp. Corinna allows me to get 2 of those pieces. The Trainer's Mail, I should have taken the Rare Candy, so I could then Corinna for a Fighting Pokemon, Garchomp, and a Trainer card, Professor's Letter, or an item card to get me energy. As it happened, I took the Fighting Stadium, and in the end, it turned out to be the right move, because I was able to get the Rare Candy, and now I've got the Fighting Stadium. So it turned out to be the correct move, but statistically speaking, I did the wrong thing there. But it worked out, so, you know, maybe I was just being clever. But of course, the Acrobite could also have got me an energy there, and it would have worked out. So Garchomp's first attack does 60 damage, 80 with the Fighting Stadium, and it allows you to attach an energy to one of your bench Pokemon. But unlike cards like Baby Yveltal and Baby Landorus, the thing that makes this Garchomp really good is that you get to attach any energy. It doesn't have to be a basic. So you saw there, and Shrine of Memories comes down to get rid of the Fighting Stadium. I was able to use that to attach a strong energy to Gibble, which is nice. Now, Tom's got 2 options here, like I said. He can use Psychic Infinity to not quite KO the Garchomp. Now here, when he plays a Skylar, I am a little bit worried, because if he drops a startling Megaphone here, that'll get rid of my Focus Sash, and I'll be a little bit sad. But I'm also thinking, and it's a Spirit Link, so I'm off the hook. But I'm also thinking, well, Skylar isn't a Lysander, so he's not getting rid of my Gibble with the strong energy. So it's not the end of the world, it's also not a Zerosic. And most Mewtwo decks don't tend to play Startling Megaphone, so when he dropped the Skylar, I'm thinking I'm probably okay here. I'd be very surprised if he played a Startling Megaphone, and if he's playing a Skylar, he can't be playing a Zerosic or a Lysander this turn. So here he's got 2 options. He can damage change, put the 80 on Garchomp, but then I live for a turn. Or he can Psychic Infinity, but with a Focus Sash, I live for a turn anyway, so he might as well damage change here. Because damage change at least heals the Mewtwo. But of course, then next turn, I can just do the same attack, and then he can't damage change. So he's going to be 2-hit KOing my Garchomp. And then I'm going to be 3-hit KOing his Mewtwo. But I can build up and get a 1-hit KO, ladies and gentlemen. Garchomp's second attack does 160 damage to an EX for 2 energy. So if I can get 3 strong energy on there, that's 220 and a 1-hit KO. Now it would also work with 2 strong and a Fighting Stadium, but this is my list, so I can tell you definitively, I only play 2 Fighting Stadium in this list, and we've already seen them both go. So Tom does the correct play there, he damage changes, and now that Focus Sash is useless. Next turn he will be able to get a KO. But I've got another Focus Sash, I've got another energy, and what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use a VS Seeker to get a Corinna for a Rare Candy and a Garchomp. And what I'm doing is I'm basically building up that Gibble on the bench with strong energy. So this turn, and I really want a Focus Sash here, this turn I'm going to do this attack, and I'm going to put a second strong energy on that benched Gibble. Now don't get me wrong, ladies and gentlemen, Tom is going to be able to potentially Lysander and damage change to KO that benched Gibble, which is why I'm a little hesitant here. But if he does that, I've got a half-dead Garchomp and a completely not at all dead Garchomp with a Focus Sash. So he can't keep damage changing forever, ladies and gentlemen. There's going to come a turn when he can't damage change, and as soon as he doesn't damage change, I get the KO. Now, there was an argument here that I keep the same Garchomp active, do 60 damage to the Mewtwo, bringing him within range of Garchomp's second attack, and just let him get a KO next turn. Maybe that would have been a better play. It doesn't really make much of a difference. Here I'm stopping him getting a KO for a turn, but he can damage change now. Whereas if I'd left the other Garchomp active, he couldn't damage change. Well, he could, but he'd actually gain 20 damage and take 20 off of me. So he can damage change, but sooner or later, all of my Garchomps are going to be half dead, and he's going to have to start killing them, at which stage I'm going to be killing him. And I'm going to be KOing the Mega Mewtwo. Now, what Tom really wants here is a Lysander. If he can get a Lysander and damage change onto the Gibble, then he can KO that Gibble, who is at this stage looking like the biggest threat, and heal off while he's doing so. But then I've still got an army of Garchomps going. I've still got those 2 Garchomps going, and sooner or later those Mewtwo's are going down. Not to mention the fact that if I get a Lysander, I can one-hit KO his Shaman, and I can one-hit KO his non-Mega Mewtwo. Although I might have all of my strong energy in the discard at this stage. I did get a very rough opening hand of all that energy. So I think it might even be that I can't draw into a strong energy. I have to use Garchomp's attack to attach them. Now we see a VS Seeker here, and I'm a little bit worried, but I don't believe he's dropped a Lysander yet. And this is what I'm looking for. I'm worried that he's got a Lysander in there. I'm worried that he's going to drag up the Gibble and do damage change, because Gibble's only got 60 HP. And that would be a very, very bad thing for me, because I kind of want that Gibble. It's not the end of the world, because like I say, I'm confidently 2-hitting him. He's 2-hitting me. But I'm okay with that, because I'm taking 2 prizes. And there's still that Shaman on the bench. So it's not the end of the world here at all. Now, I believe that might have been an Ultra Ball there. I think we might have seen a VS Seeker for an Ultra Ball 2 Hex Maniacs to get a Mega Mewtwo. I think that might have been what happened. Because Tom here, he knows what's inevitably going to happen. And Tom's in a really awkward position here. He's kind of got a damage change here. Because if he doesn't damage change, I've got the KO next turn. I attach 1 energy to 160 and get the KO. So there's a Mega Turbo onto his benched Mewtwo. But even if he... if he doesn't damage change here, I've got the KO. If he does damage change, then he puts 60 damage onto my Garchomp, like he's just done. But he's not taking a prize, and I'm getting more turns. Now I get that Focus Sash, and it looks like a VS Seeker for a Sycamore here, getting rid of a Hex Maniac as the only other card. And... no, I really wanted a Corinna there for another Candy Garchomp. Problem is, if I do that, my entire hand is 1 Hex Maniac, and that's not a risk I can take. Now, there's an Ultra Ball. I'm hoping I've got a Candy in hand here, because if I rare Candy Garchomp, then that Garchomp with 2 strong energy is now safe. There's nothing my opponent can do. Yes, he can Lysander it and damage change. Yeah, it's a Gibble. So here, I want to be doing 60 damage, not 80. I do not want a strong energy or a fighting stadium here. The reason is, if I do 60 damage, my opponent cannot Lysander and damage change the Gabite. Impossible. Well, he can, but he'll only be doing 60 and he won't get the KO. Which means I can then evolve and get the KO on the Mega Mewtwo. Even if he played as a Rosic, and that's my energy attachment for the turn here, ladies and gentlemen, if I remember correctly. Or if I remember if I'm watching it correctly. Because you can see that strong at the top. No, apparently I'm not attaching it to him. But really I should be attaching it to him. Because I don't really want it on the active. Well, it looks like I'm just not attaching it. Just being a little bit prudent, making sure I've got an energy for whoever next turn. But as my opponent doesn't play... and I'm fairly sure at this stage he doesn't play Startling Megaphone. He can Lysander and Psychic Infinity, but the Focus Ash will stop him getting a 1-hit KO. He can Lysander and damage change, but that won't get the KO. And I've now, and it's taken a fair few turns, but I've now got 3 strong energy on that Gabite. Which means I can now use Garchomp's second attack for 220 and get the KO on the Mewtwo. And oh yes, ladies and gentlemen, He can't one-hit me back because I've got Focus Sash. And this is what makes the Garchomp Mewtwo matchup, in my opinion at least, so favourable for Garchomp. As long as you can hit your Focus Sashes, they're in a really awkward position where they damage change but don't get a KO. Or they Psychic Infinity and they do get a KO. To be honest, even if you don't hit your Focus Sashes, if they get the KO with Psychic Infinity, they leave 60 damage on themselves, and you need 2 energy to do 160 and get the KO. And when you attack with Garchomp, you attach an energy to the bench. So it's kind of like a one-attack Pokemon. The first Garchomp attacks for 1 energy, and then he attaches while he does so to the bench Garchomp, so the second Garchomp only needs 1 more energy. And I've spoken on my podcast PTCGRadio a lot about how my love of 1 energy decks, because it's very consistent. You don't want to go, well, I can attack in 2 turns when I've attached 2 more energy. So the Garchomp here really does have the advantage of, it's got a 1 energy attack, but the first Garchomp you want to use a 1 energy attack, and after that you may well want the 2 energy attack, but you've already got an energy on there, so it kind of turns into a 1 energy attack. So Tom here, he could be getting the KO. He's choosing not to get the KO. He's choosing to just Sky Return with the Shaman so that he can draw some more cards next turn. I think we had a chat. I think he might be slightly confused. I think he might think that Focus Sash works regardless. Oh, it looks like he's changed his mind about the retreating. He's retreated to the other Mewtwo, and he's gone and got the KO. And I think this is the conversation we're having about Focus Sash, me saying it only works if you got full energy. Now, the other awesome thing about Garchomp is it's got free retreat. There's my Garchomp, and that's basically game at this stage, ladies and gentlemen. And that's redonkulous. Because at this stage now, I'm going to bring up a Garchomp with 3 strong energy hitting for 220 and a Focus Sash. I'm going to take 2 prizes, going down to 2 prizes remaining, and Tom then is going to be in a very awkward position where he can't hit me. Well, he can hit me, but he can't one-hit KO me. He can use Psychic Infinity to do enough damage, but then it gets reduced down to 120. Garchomp lives, and then I've still got my Garchomp doing 220. So we see a Sycamore coming down there to draw 7. And I've got 2 energy on my other Garchomp. It just means I can do his second attack. That Garchomp is now in a position where he can KO the Shaman. So we see a level wall coming down here. Presumably I'll be going for a Hawlucha. I'm fairly sure I'm out of Gabites at this stage. Gibbles. I might even be failing it, you know. It's slightly off screen. I think I might even be failing it here. I'm just trying to make sure. I mean, to be honest, at this stage, I don't really need much, but I'm probably making sure that I've got some kind of Lysander or VS Seeker ready to go on the Shaman next turn. Not that it really matters, because that bench Garchomp here is going to have the KO on absolutely anything on his field. So the Garchomp comes down, takes 2 prizes, and Tom, unless he plays Xerosic or Startling Megaphone, which I'm fairly certain at this stage he doesn't, there's really nothing he can do here. The game is essentially over, which is very mean, but this is a strength for the Garchomp deck. Focus Sash and using non-EXs really puts Surprise Trade massively in your favour, because not only does your opponent have to take 6 prizes to win, if you don't bench Shaman, and take 6 KOs to win, they've also maybe got to essentially take up to 10 KOs if you get all 4 Focus Sash down. And when you could be one-hit KOing EXs, and don't sleep on Garchomp's second attack, ladies and gentlemen, 160 for 2 energy means a strong energy or a fighting stadium, you're doing 180 and getting the KO. So it really is a huge, huge advantage. And something like a Mewtwo deck really needs to play Xerosic or Startling Megaphone, or it's going to be very, very favourable for Garchomp, because they can Psychic Infinity, but they won't get the KO. But most of the time, they're going to be damage changing, so they don't get the KO. And then while all the while you can build up a Garchomp with 2 strong or a strong and a fighting stadium, and then you'll get, 2 strong and a fighting stadium, I should say, and then you can go ahead and get the KO. It really is a very rough matchup. And Garchomp has really good matchups against any EX heavy deck, because you're hitting you're one-hit KOing the EXs so efficiently here, and you're using Focus Sash to stop your opponent getting the KOs back. So if you were to play something like even Virizion Genesect that hits you for weakness, or something like an Evil Tal or a Darkrai deck, because they're struggling to get one-hit KOs because of Focus Sash, and you're one-hitting their EXs, it really does tip all of those matchups massively in your favour. Although I should mention it gets pretty wrecked by Trainer Lock and by Greninja. So as we're between games, like always, I should say a massive thank you to Mad for Miniatures, and especially Vinny Gardner, the proprietor of said establishment. As I've said on my previous videos, they didn't just let us record, they set up a room at the back, they put some extra lights on so we had better lighting, they gave us an extension lead so it was nice and easy to plug it in. And they just kind of let us get on with it. They were incredibly accommodating, and it's because of how lovely and accommodating they are that I'm now able to bring you 7 rounds from this tournament for your viewing pleasure. And of course my commentating pleasure, because don't be surprised by this, I really enjoy doing this. Hint, hint, Pokemon. I mean, I don't think that's going to work, but you never know, do you? So, there is... Now, as much as I'm saying this is a favourable matchup for Garchomp, and I absolutely believe that it is a favourable matchup for Garchomp, that doesn't mean Mewtwo can't win. As we saw in the previous game, my deck, for the first time today, but still, it did not draw very well. And Mewtwo, turn 2, Psychic Infinity does, I mean, for a DCE, it does 70. So there is a situation here where I don't hit, and I am shuffling quite a bit here, but you saw like that Garchomp had 3 strong energy attached, and I didn't want a repeat of the previous game. You are allowed 2 to 3 minutes to shuffle between turns, and I usually take this whether I win or lose game 1. So don't worry about that. And if Tom gets a couple of Mega Mewtwo's and just starts using Psychic Infinity nice and early, and I don't hit my Focus Sash, that's really bad. Because what Focus Sash does, it means either he damage changes and doesn't get a KO, or he Psychic Infinities and doesn't get a KO, which gives me either a turn where he's got 60 damage and I can KO him, or it gives me time to build up a Garchomp to get the one-hit KO. But if he keeps taking Psychic Infinity KOs and he doesn't have any damage on, so I got to have the big setup to get the KO, and I don't get the big setup to get the KO, then it all becomes a moot point, ladies and gentlemen, and then he wins quite quickly indeed. And that is a downside of a deck like Garchomp. It's fragile. I'm playing 8 basics, 3 Hawlucha, 4 Gibble, and a Shaman. So I'm often going to be starting with a 60 HP Gibble, and if I don't get a Focus Sash and a few basics down early, it really is going to be bad. Now, one of the awesome things that Focus Sash does, of course, is that it buys you turns early game. It means that if I might have a Gibble active and not be able to evolve it, but I can then stick a Focus Sash on him, and it means that I'm going to basically guarantee that Gibble lives for a turn. Because I'm going to get the first attack here, but, it's Hawlucha for 60, or it's a Gibble. What I'm not going to have here is, Tom's going to get the first potential KO. Turn 2, Psychic Infinity for a DCE does 70. And that's, excuse me, that is somewhat daunting. I.e., if he can just get a DCE Spirit Link Mega Mewtwo, and we see a town map there, it's going to allow him to turn all of his prizes face up. Means when he takes KOs, he's going to be able to choose what prize he takes. If he can get a Mega Mewtwo, and we see one in the prizes there, a Spirit Link and a DCE, he's going to be doing 70 and KOing that Hawlucha on his second turn of the game. So one of my priorities is to get that Spirit Link. I'm going to be trying to... not Spirit Link, what am I talking about? One of my priorities is going to be to get that Focus Sash so that the Hawlucha can win. So Tom here, he's got an Ultra Ball straight away, and presumably maybe a second Mewtwo. Most likely it's going to be a Hooper. There we go. And what Hooper allows him to do is get, like I said before, Shaman, Mewtwo. Although I'd expect him to get a Mega here. There we go. So he's got a Mewtwo down, he's got a Shaman to use to draw cards, and he's guaranteed that he's got the Mega for next turn. And he's seen my deck. I went through pretty much my entire deck last game. So he knows I'm not playing stuff like Judge or Ace Trainer, although I wouldn't be able to play Ace Trainer until I took prizes anyway, because that's a card you can only play if you're behind. So he knows I'm not really playing much hand disruption, so he knows that if he keeps that Mega in his hand, he can feel pretty good about having it next turn. Now, there is the Spirit Link, so he could here go ahead and... we know he's got the Mega. If he's got a DCE next turn, he's got the KO on the Hawlucha. Now, the other thing for me to do, and it looks like I've got the Spirit Link here, I can Spirit Link, I keep forgetting to say that. If I've got a Focus Sash here, I can put the Gibble in the active, and he's actually got quite a funky attack. Now, I'm asking if I can take the energy attachment back. I won't be at all worried if he says no. It's very much up to him. I haven't played the Corinna yet, but I've made it clear I'm going to. He lets me. We're having a casual game. I let him take back the Mega Mewtwo play in the previous game. We are the only two 3-0s at this stage, ladies and gentlemen. And in this tournament, I think 3-1 was basically, 3-2 was basically guaranteed top cut. It was one of those weird ones. So we both know we've basically cut anyway. So we're both very much more relaxed in this game, and you know, we're friendly and we're having a good time. There's no rule about, you know, allowing your opponent take-backs or not. It's worth an ask. And I will never be offended if my opponent says no, because they have no reason to say yes or no. In the same way I would never be offended if my opponent asked me to hurry up my play or called a judge because he thought I'd done something improper. It's the way the game goes. Speaking of which, I don't usually like to put myself on stream. It's not something I like doing. But at this stage, me and Tom are the only 3-0s in the tournament. And I did say that I'm trying to highlight new cards from the later set BREAKPoint. And given that we're the only 3-0s and I'm playing a deck which is entirely based around cards from BREAKPoint, it would be kind of silly and counterintuitive to not get myself on stream this round. So I don't really like putting myself on stream. I like recording and commentating other people's games, but I kind of had to. So I play a Corinna, I get a second Gibble, I get a Focus Sash, and you see here I'm hitting for 60. And it's very important that I hit for 60 damage this turn. Don't want a Strong Energy, don't want a Fighting Stadium. If I've got a Fighting Stadium in hand, I ain't putting it down. Because if I hit him for 80, he can damage change and get the KO on Hawlucha. If I hit him for 60, he can still Lysander and damage change KO a Gibble, but that's all he can do. And I mean, damage change is unlikely here. In order to damage change, he needs that, which we know he's got. He needs 2 Mega Turbo, and an extra energy attachment, and a Shrine of Memories. That's what it's going to take for him to get the damage change here. And I'm not thinking it's terribly likely. I could be wrong, of course. So we see a Spirit Link on the next Mewtwo down. How much of this does he have? A Floatstone on the Hooper. It's going to be interesting when he plays because we saw him get rid of a Battle Compressor with Ultra Ball. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens when he plays his first Battle Compressor. Is he going to be worried like in the previous game? Is he going to be worried because of that and put an AZ straight in the discard pile? Or is he essentially going to wing it thinking there's no way he's going to do that again? Oh, and actually, that's a moot point. He plays an Ultra Ball here. He gets an AZ into the discard pile. So he can now, although he has got a VS Seeker there as well, which is not ideal. But it means that if I try the whole Sand Tomb shenanigans, it's going to work. I mean, Sand Tomb is only really good for 2 situations. And I use them both in this tournament. Situation number 1 is what we saw in game 1, where I just need to buy a turn because I've got nothing. Situation number 2, I cannot find a Garchomp, so I drag up something using Lysander that I don't think is going to be able to get out the active, and then I use Sand Tomb to try and pick away and get a cheeky KO without using Garchomp. That's really where Sand Tomb comes in handy. So we see the DCE, but he's going to need another Psychic Energy, Mega Turbo. That's Mega Turbo if he's got a Psychic Energy in the discard and the Shrine of Memories, I don't think it's on the cards. So what's going to happen here is that he is going to go ahead and hit me with Psychic Infinity. Oh no, he's actually using Scattershock here, I think that's what it's called, which is Mewtwo's first attack, which does 30 damage. I would have used Psychic Infinity here, purely because Hawlucha's not in Shaman's Sky Return range, whereas he would be with Psychic Infinity. It doesn't really make a difference, if I'm honest, ladies and gentlemen. It's pretty much a moot point. But Psychic Infinity would be more use than Scattershot here. It would do 60 damage rather than 30, meaning something like a Shaman or a 1-energy Mewtwo could get a KO, whereas now both of them would do 30 and not get the KO. So I've got a second Corinna here, and this is annoying in situations like this, because, and this does happen in fighting decks, and it has ever since Fighting Fist came out, Furious Fist, sorry, came out, you end up playing a Corinna every turn, because you don't hit the Sycamore, and it's really quite frustrating, because you end up just using Corinna, and it doesn't always draw through your deck fast enough. But I've got a Garchomp here, and I would presume I'm going for a Rare Candy here. Although it's taken me a little while to decide, so it's probably one of those situations where I want more than that. Oh, I've gone for a Professor's Letter. Oh, I already had a Rare Candy, that's why. So I've got the energy there, I've got the Rare Candy. It doesn't look... and I don't do anything. Why don't I do anything? Well, Mewtwo's got 60 damage. If I go ahead and use Garchomp and hit for, 60 or 80 or whatever, he can then damage change. And I don't want him to damage change. Even if he damage changes for 120, he plays a Sycamore here, getting rid of a Spirit Link, a Super Rod, and a Psychic Energy. Even, let's say I hit him and put him up to 120, which is what would have happened. I don't want him to damage change. Because if he damage changes, okay, he doesn't get the KO, but he heals all that 120 damage off. And I don't want that. I want to basically sit there and go, you know what, mate? You go ahead and damage change, but I'm not going to make it easy for you. So you can kill the Hawlucha this turn. You can go up a prize. But if you kill the Hawlucha, you've got to leave that 60 damage on you, and I'm going to attach 1 energy to that Garchomp and KO you. If you damage change, then you're going to have 30 damage on you, which means a Strong Energy or a Fighting Stadium gets the KO. So his only option here, and we've seen him Sycamore, so we can't do it, his only option was to try and Lysander and damage change the Gibble for the KO, or Lysander and Psychic Infinity the Garchomp, which would not get the KO. So passing there, I consider to be the correct play. Because if I go and hit him for 60... then straight away he's going to try and just KO with, damage change for 120 with a Mewtwo. And then he can do something like a Sky Return with Shaman to get the KO on Garchomp. And that's not what I want him to do. So we see a Sycamore there getting rid of a VS Seeker. And I want to say a Lysander. No, I think it might have been a Rare Candy actually. And we see a Gabite coming down and a Focus Sash. We see a Hawlucha coming down. A Strong Energy on the Garchomp, and that's going to be enough to get the KO. Now I'm hitting for 180. Actually, any energy would have been enough to get the KO. So, not a perfect setup from me here, but this is one of the things, and I keep saying this is one of the things, there's a lot of things I love about this Garchomp deck. One of the things I like about the Garchomp deck is, you're not under pressure to set up, and that's why Corinna does work in the deck. What more setup do I need? I don't need another Gabite down on the field. In fact, there's an argument not to have the Gabite down because I don't want him to damage change to 60 damage. I mean, he's not going to have any damage, so I'm getting the KO, but in some situations. Now, I get the level for the Gabite here. What I mean is, if he's got 60 damage on him, which you see happens a lot, there is an argument for not having a Gibble to try and avoid the damage change. But here, even if I don't get that extra Gibble, well, the Garchomp has got a Focus Sash, so he ain't getting KO'd. The Gabite's got a Focus Sash, so he ain't getting KO'd. So I'm really not under much pressure here to get any more of a setup than I've actually already got, because I'm doing just fine. As it is, I've now got the Gibble as well, and you saw I gave up that KO with the Hawlucha, but giving up the KO with the Hawlucha means I got to bring up a fresh Garchomp, I got to get the KO, and I've got a Focus Sash attached. Now, here's what I'm thinking at this stage. If I can have a Strong Energy and a Fighting Stadium next turn, I can one-hit KO Mewtwo. And that, had I let the Garchomp up to take a hit, rather than just giving him the Hawlucha, that wouldn't have been the situation I was in. So now, not only have I taken 2 prizes with that Garchomp and essentially allowed him another turn because of the Focus Sash, but now I'm thinking, if I've got a Fighting Energy, a Fighting Stadium and a Strong Energy, then I can one-hit KO the next Mega Mewtwo, and then what's he got? He's not going to be able to win at that stage. So I'm feeling pretty confident about my chances here. I am liking my setup, and I'm liking the matchup. It really is a good matchup for Garchomp, and it's a little bit mean, because Tom he's doing his best, he's playing well, he's having a good go of it, but the decks here, it's giving him a very bad matchup. And this is one of the reasons I don't like being on stream. Because if this was anybody else playing Garchomp against Mewtwo, and check my other videos, I mean, there aren't any other Garchomp ones, but they're similar things. Sometimes it's a bad matchup, and I sit here and I go, it's not their fault, it's a terrible matchup, they're doing the best they can, and it sounds like I'm giving a nice analysis of the game. But now, I sit here and go, oh, well, you know, he's doing his best, but bless him, he was never going to win this game, and I sound like an arrogant, bad person. Because I'm basically sitting there going, nah, there's no way he was ever going to beat me. And it's nothing to do with me here, or my playing. It's purely because the 2 decks we happen to choose at the tournament match up very well in my stead. So the Skylar comes down here, and once again, I'm slightly worried about a startling Megaphone, which is really just me being a little bit paranoid at this stage. I think we can be fairly sure that by this point in the game that he isn't playing it. Either way, and it's awkward to see what to do here, because, I mean, the sensible play is, you know, he can either hit with them, I mean, really, it would be to, I don't know what the sensible play is. I suppose he wants to attack with the Mewtwo, because, I was thinking he could attach a DCE to Shaman, use Sky Return for 30, invalidating the Focus Sash, but then he's got to put something active. Well, I've already got a Strong Energy, so I'm already doing 180. So if he puts the Hooper or the non-Mega Mewtwo or the Shaman active, I have already got the KO. So he's got to put the Mega Mewtwo active just to essentially stop me getting a KO this turn. But like I've said, I can use a Strong Energy Fighting Stadium to get the KO here. And there goes the Focus Sash. As a bit of a ruling point, Focus Sash only gets discarded if you've got full HP and would be KO'd. So when my opponent, like in turn 1 here, where he did 30 to the Hawlucha, Focus Sash does not get KO'd because he does 30. We wouldn't have got the KO. And it's a weird kind of thing here, because if I was playing Muscle Band, and here I don't have a better supporter, so what I'm doing is I Corinnered for a Garchomp, and then I got an Acrobike, because I'm trying to draw the Fighting Stadium Strong Energy. At this stage, I've given up, and I've gone ahead and attached an energy to the benched Garchomp. I haven't got the one-hit KO here. And I get the Gabite down, so I've got potentially another Garchomp coming soon. And here, I've got a couple of choices, but really the sensible option here is probably to retreat and attack with the Garchomp. I don't want to give my opponent prizes here. I quite like that he doesn't have another Mega Mewtwo, and I don't really want him to take a prize where he can take the Mega Mewtwo and have another Mega Mewtwo. So it's a bit of a shame that I missed out on the big one-hit KO, but I'm not too worried about it. I can do 60 damage here, and I can attach an energy to my benched Gabite. And here, he's in the same situation. The only real play here is to try and use a Lysander and KO my benched Garchomp. But then if he does that, I just need an energy of any description, and I've got the KO next turn with the Garchomp that's currently active. And he would also have a Focus Sash, so he wouldn't be KO'd. Now, he does play a Lysander. He's going to get the KO on the Shaman with Psychic Infinity. It gets him a couple of prizes here, but it doesn't really do him any good. Oh no, now this is quite a clever little play actually. What he's doing here is using that to put the 60 on the Shaman and basically saying, look, you ain't going to get the one-hit KO unless you put down a Fighting Stadium and a Strong Energy. But you've got to do that while getting the Shaman out of the active. So here he's getting a couple of prizes and he's buying himself a turn. And if I put another Strong Energy onto that bench Garchomp, he can then use Lysander to try and kill that one. So a clever little play here. He's buying himself a turn. He's basically trying to stop me getting the KO. He's healed a Mewtwo, and he's put me in an awkward position where unless I can hit a Floatstone or an AZ, and don't tell anyone, but I'm not playing either of them in this deck today. I'm literally playing no switching cards, which incidentally is how I won the mirror in round 1. I ran out of Garchomps in the mirror when I had one prize left. And I used Lysander to drag up his Hawlucha, which has free retreat. My opponent was also playing no switching cards, and I used Gibble's Sandtomb to something like 4-hit KO with a Strong Energy, his Hawlucha, and go ahead and get the KO. A cheeky way to win. So I'm giving up that Shaman, but I don't mind giving up a Shaman here, because the prize trade is so hilariously in my favour that giving up a Shaman doesn't really matter. I've got 3 Garchomps out. 2 of them have got Spirit Links attached. And the other one, I'm threatening a one-hit KO. Oh, and this is a really nice play here. So he's got the Lysander, and like I said, he's now got the Garchomp into the active. So that one-hit KO I was setting up is now gone. So it's going to take a while here. But this is Tom making a bit of a comeback, and there he takes the... Oh, no. He's going for the VS Seeker, probably thinking he wants to use Lysander. Now, it's still going to take a lot to try and get the win here, but he's playing it very sensibly. What he's been able to do there is half KO my Shaman while taking out the one thing that's really threatening to KO the Mewtwo, which was a really clever little 2-turn sequence from Tom there. A very nice play indeed. Now I'm thinking about a Battle Compressor, but apparently I'm just trying to kind of consider what's in my deck and what my plays are. Because I ain't getting a KO here. Like I've said, I need 2 Strong Energy. Oh, I'm playing I'm actually playing a Sacred Ash and a Battle Compressor at the same time here, apparently. So, here, my only real play is to jab him for 60 with the Garchomp while attaching an energy to the bench, and then, you know, essentially do this dance. So it is a bit of a slow-paced matchup here. Now, if I can hit Lysanders, which clearly I'm not hitting here, then I can just sit here and start picking off his bench. He's got 3 EXs on the bench I can KO. But I'm not actually here in any position to do too much. Now, I'm not terribly worried. I don't think I'm in danger of losing the game here. But, oh, and that's time has been called, so I am turn 0 at this stage. Asked my opponent if he wants to call it. My opponent said, I'd rather play out the last couple turns. And I said, cool, let's do it. I always like to say that because I don't want to, I don't want to seem like I'm taking the mick here. I mean, there's no way. Tom's got 2 turns. He cannot take 4 prizes in 2 turns. So I've won the match. The match is decided. But Tom wants to play out the last couple of turns, and I have no issue with doing so. So we continue to play, and we play out the last couple of turns. Tom can't win the match, but what he can do is gain some more information here and, play it out a little bit. almost kind of prepare himself, so if he plays Garchomp in the future, he can try and kind of mount a bit of a comeback. So Tom here is turn 1. Remember, when time gets called, the person currently doing their turn carries on, and then there are 3 extra turns. And when I had this argument at the ECC, you've got to have finished your turn and resolved everything. So if you've taken the KO and then time is called, but you haven't drawn your prize, your turn is not over. So we see a Lysander there KOing the Shaman. But of course, this is exactly what I've been talking about the whole game. He's now in a situation where, okay, he's taken a KO, but he's left the 60 damage on, so I come up, I hit for 180 and get the KO on the Mewtwo. So Tom is not going to be able to get a prize here unless he KOs that bench Lucha. And he's used a whole bunch of VS Seekers here. So if he's got a Lysander, he can KO the Lucha. He's got a Mega Turbo. And this is the very final turn of the game. So unless he can take 2 prizes this turn, which he can't because I haven't got any X on the field, then it's a moot point. And I've got a Lysander and a Strong Energy, so I can actually KO either the Hooper or the Shaman. Now, officially, I didn't win Game 2. Game 2 nothing ever happened in Game 2. Game 2 never ended. Game 2 never happened. But I would have won with an extra turn. So hopefully that game was enlightening. Hopefully you got a good look at this Garchomp deck. I know it's a deck that a lot of people have wanted to see in action. And although I had a bit of a slow start to Game 1, I think in this game we got a really good look at exactly what this Garchomp deck is and how it works. For those of you wanting a list, please don't put it down in the comments. Purely because, yes, you can have a list. I'm going to make a video with the list I used at this tournament. It's going to be going online in a few days' time, so look out for that soon. I will be posting the Garchomp list, but rather than putting it in the comments, I am going to be putting it as a proper video. Please be that guy who's only watched bits of the video and then goes asking for a list, or hasn't even watched the video and goes asking for a list. I'm telling you right now in the video, yeah, you can have a list. You just got to wait a couple days for me to make a video. Make sure you like this video. I think it was a good one, this video. I enjoyed it. Sounded a little bit vain, unfortunately, as you kind of tend to do when you've got a favourable matchup and you're commentating your own game. But I apologise, ladies and gentlemen. Please don't think any less of me. Make sure you click the like button. I'll give you a second. Have you clicked it yet? I mean, why would you not have clicked it by this stage? It takes like a second. And of course, make sure you subscribe. And if you've already subscribed, get a friend to subscribe. Think of it like fun homework. And if you've got anything to say about this deck, other than can I have a list, because the answer is wait a couple of days, and the answer will be yes. If you've got anything else to say, pop it down in the comments. Thank you very much for watching. Look after yourselves till next time. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.